Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you ignore an avoidant. Now, ignoring an avoidant can be for plenty of different reasons. Maybe you're actually frustrated and you need time to process. Maybe you are trying to be a little bit vengeful and you're trying to, give them a taste of their own medicine. Maybe you're trying to manipulate the situation so that they can give you attention. And maybe you're frustrated and you're out of ideas. Or you accidentally ignore them. For whatever reason, sometimes this happens within relationships, within interpersonal conflict, whatever it may be. What happens is dependent on the person, dependent on you, dependent on the validity of why they feel like you're ignoring them. But let's talk about 6 reasons or behaviors that may show up if you ignore an avoidant. These are not the only things that can happen, and every person is different, so please keep that in mind. But the very first one is you ignore them and they have a fear of loss. They may not show it, but that does not mean it's not there. What do I mean by the fear of loss? Avoidants are, just like all of us, right? Every person in this world, we love and we care and we want connection. However, people who are avoidantly attached, and I used to be, sometimes the fear of loss may be uncomfortable. And that may cause an emotional shutdown or something that they're not ready for, or it may make them respond to their own fear of loss, to which they may react poorly, where they feel a lot of things. Maybe they're having negative thoughts about you, about how you're trying to control them, or whatever it is, because deep inside they're just uncomfortable as to why this is happening. They feel helpless to the fact that they could lose you, because you might be ignoring them, because you may be sitting around thinking, hey, maybe I don't want this person anymore. And they are aware that that's a possibility. And they are afraid to lose you. The next one is indifference. This one is tricky. It does happen. Some avoidants may display or even feel indifferent towards a partner's detachment. And it usually happens when they are checking out of the relationship or they feel like you're playing games. What do I mean by indifference? Because indifference is different than being detached. Indifference means that they don't care one way or another. It's different than trying to cover up your feelings or pull away, or they're afraid and they're trying not to show it. It's not that necessarily. It could be. But usually the display of indifference could actually mean truly they feel indifferent to you ignoring them. And usually what this is, especially if it's a fearful avoidant, but dismissive avoidants do this too, they are kind of checking out of the relationship and they're slowly trying to get you to end it so that they're not the bad guy. Both dismissive and fearful avoidants do this, but what I notice is dismissive avoidants, as they, usually when they get more experienced with themselves and who they are and their attachment issues, they stop doing that. But fearful avoidants continue to do that even throughout, well into their life. And the reason is because fearful avoidants are actually much more afraid, typically, of being manipulated or accused of something. And so that's why fearful avoidants do it. Dismissive avoidants do it because they're afraid of conflict. So the root is typically less deep for dismissive avoidance, but fearful avoidants do this. So indifference is not a good thing, the best way to put it. If you want to be with them, it's probably not a good thing. The next one is more common with fearful avoidance as well. They might lie for stability. So you ignore them and maybe you're mad at them, and they lie to please you or placate you, to maintain the relationship equilibrium. And it's not the healthiest, but it does come from the fact they care and they don't want to lose you. And so they may lie about something that you want simply so that you don't leave or ignore them. However, unfortunately, this does backfire because eventually it's not real. They lied, and you will find that out and be even more frustrated. And so this technique doesn't work, but it does work temporarily. It's like a Band-Aid where they're just trying to not lose you. A lot of times they're just reacting, they're flustered, and they really don't know what to do or what to say, but they also are not ready to change either. So it's a confusing situation for them. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but it is true. The next one is increased effort. This is a good thing. It doesn't mean I'm telling you to ignore your partner, but it does happen. Typically, when this happens, the avoidant individual believes the partner's detachment or ignoring them is justified. And so they actually feel like they know why. And they can admit that. Maybe they said something really not nice. Maybe they raised their voice. They know they're not supposed to do that. And so you're ignoring them because you're trying to process, like, you're not punishing them. No, you're hurt. And they know that. And so usually they do increase their effort because they do want to strive to improve a relationship. Some avoidants actually do. Some don't. Some don't. I can appreciate that, but a lot of them do. And if you're seeing increased effort, it is a good sign, especially if a lot of you guys, I know you don't want to ignore your partner. You don't want to punish them. You don't want to hurt them, but sometimes you just don't know what to do, and you're hurt and you feel sad and you just can't deal with whatever. You don't want them to trigger you at this moment either. And so you're taking time to find out how you're feeling. And usually they might increase effort to make you happy because they care about you and it's genuine. The next one is annoyance or anger. I understand that this is scary, but it does happen. Usually it's because they think you're playing games. And so I'm not saying they shouldn't be doing this if you're actually feeling a type of way that they caused. But usually if they are reacting this way, it's because they think they're being manipulated. And avoidants don't respond well to perceived manipulation, truly at all, or playing games by their partner. It usually leads to anger and resentment, even if they still stay and try to protect the relationship or whatever it may be. Usually they're going to check out. And I have made videos on like avoidance, like genuinely wanting to leave. And this one is one of the signs of an avoidant if they actually want to leave you. You're going to see increased annoyance and anger for all of these types of things. And it might be because you have something to change for yourself. And that's okay. I think that's better than them being annoyed at you for no reason. Because if they're annoyed at you because you're ignoring them to try and get attention, you can just stop doing that and the relationship might get better, which I think is easier said than done, but there is validity to it. And so a lot of people take these things personally and think that you're being, a finger pointed at, you're a bad person, the avoidant's a bad person, whatever it is. It's not about that. You just want the relationship to work, I imagine, right? Whatever needs to be done to get there, sometimes you got to look at yourself in the mirror, and that's okay. Avoidance as well. Nobody's perfect. And the last one is ending the relationship. Sometimes avoidants, when they feel like you're ignoring them, especially prolonged ignoring, that leads to breakups. A lot of avoidants do not like when they feel like they're out of control. And they feel like it's silly to not communicate what's going on. And I'm sure you feel the same way as them. But often avoidants know that the way they behave is a reaction of their childhood to some extent, somewhere deep inside subconsciously. They know the reason they do it. And so they're confused as to why you're doing it because you don't have that same behavior. And so they feel like you're doing it because you're trying to get a rise at them. And so sometimes they break up. And some, especially fearful avoidants, that have not processed a lot of the emotions they feel, sometimes they may jump into a relationship quickly after this. So I'm not saying that every time that an avoidant jumps into a relationship quickly, it's because you ignored them. I'm not blaming you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that can happen. That is a pattern. And if you can relate to that, that could be why. And so I'm just sharing why this occurs or what this happens. I have other videos on how to adjust a lot of behaviors for both individuals to have a healthy relationship, but this was just an informational video. Let's summarize and then we'll wrap it up. The fear of loss. That's sometimes what can happen. Indifference, lying for stability, more common with fearful avoidance. Increased effort. Usually it's because they feel you're ignoring them for a justified reason. Annoyance or anger, and then ending the relationship. And sometimes they might jump into a relationship quickly after this, a little bit more common with fearful avoidance. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.